We're going to go ahead and open this meeting. This is a workshop regarding the budget, a budget workshop for October 1st, 2024. Welcome everybody. We're going to go ahead and just kick it off with Jen. Jen, lead us away.
Thank you. I'm going to log in so that I can share my screen.
They're watching you.
It's actually not that bad.
Is that off of this thing? I guess.
I thought
No? No, because look, I'm pointing at it.
Yeah, I got mouse.
It's right above the TV.
Yeah, it's up there.
Yeah,
Cool.
I'm checking out our
the
new
$19
technology.
one.
Yeah.
This is a good one.
I was tired of not having a good camera right here, so I just ordered one. Mackenzie, I'm just ordering one, sorry. See how you
Turn
are.
your sound microphone off.
Mine is off. Oh.
There you go. You're good.
Okay. Okay, so beginning with the general fund. This is where we're at for the 2025 budget at this point in time, October 1st, 2024. So the beginning fund balance is projected at $26,500,000. The total revenues for the general fund right now are projected to be $43,978,994. The total salaries and benefits are projected to be $36,310,925. The operating expenditures are projected at $18,063,700 for total expenditures of $54,374,625. The right now the current total from ending fund balance cash is projected at $10,395,631. And this budget right now, the revenue is projected at 0.74% less than last year's revenue, and the total expenditures are projected at 4.43% over last year's expenditures. While the $10,395,631 looks slightly scary. I want to remind you that we adopted last year's budget at about 7.7 million, using 7.7 million in cash, and we are projected to end the year at only using a little over 70,000 in our cash. So looking at 5 years actual between 2019 and 2023, we have an average of 6.51% budgeted. Our revenues received, we've received 6.51% over what we've budgeted in revenue. And our expenditures, we have expended under what we've budgeted by 8.81% for that 5-year period. So using those averages, looking at 2025, we would be using approximately 2.75 million instead of 10.4 million in total cash. So that makes me feel better about this number, and I hope it does you too.
And the numbers that Jen's presenting you in this main spreadsheet are what we would consider the maintenance level budget. So it says that on there, but just wanted to make sure you were aware so obviously as we go forward, contracts change from year to year. Those are incorporated into these numbers for the contracts that have been settled. Any increases in costs for a lease or something like that, that's normal increases that you see on an annual basis. Jen has incorporated into these numbers. So maintenance level before we entertain policy level requests.
And just for the public to know, one of the, in simpler forms, what we've done and how we've budgeted is we've been very, very conservative on our monies coming in and tried to be conservative on monies going out. And that's why it comes out different every year, and we look better than we planned for, but that's not an accident. That's how we actually budget here. We've been smart to do it that way. But it is clear we're at the end of that. Now is the time where it starts to eat away with it, but we're at a point with so much revenue in the bank that we're becoming a bank, and we gotta be careful of that. The auditor has already warned us in the past that it's getting to be too much at different times, so we have to look at doing some expenditures. I do hope, though, that we still leave room, because we're gonna have other departments come to us now, and we've done well for ourselves in this. We need to remember to take care of them as well, as my own personal opinion on this. But thank you for all the work that you've done. It is, it does look bigger than it is, but it will take a toll this year.
Another piece of that, in the expenditures, there's one-time expenditures of it. There's a transfer out for the advance grant. We received the LATCF funds, and that's a little less than $800,000. And so that's a one-time transfer out that shows in those expenditures under the transfers out department. There's also 15 months of property and risk insurance budgeted because of changing the due date of our insurance payment. So that's about $700,000. That's a one-time expense. So that comes to about 1.5 million.
So that's 1.5.
In one-timers.
Yeah, so that's 1.5 million that doesn't have a bow wave for the future.
Yes.
That's the reason why we're explaining it this way. That bow wave is what gets it in the end. We've seen that over the years where we'll go over by 2 million this year, well, next year it'll be 3, and the next year it will be 5. That's just how it works. So if we take this out of that number, that bow wave, because it's one-time expenditure, is not connected to that. So I appreciate you taking the time to do that.
Of course.
So just to kind of close the loop on that conversation, it's the, you know, we're saying when we look at actuals on a year-to-year basis, even though we're budgeting to see over $10 million more in expenditures than revenue, we estimate that it'll be more like 2.7 million. Of that 2.7 million, you've got another 1.5 million in one-time expenses that are occurring in 2025. That also, as Commissioner Netherland explained, is not an ongoing cost that we'll see in 26.
Right.
So the money that we see, there'll be a bow wave, on top of what we're normally doing, is gonna be about 1.2 million. That has a bow wave the next year to be 1.8, or however we do this.
Mm-hmm. And with 26.5 million projected to be in our cash balance, then I think that we are not at risk of
No.
Yeah, like you said, we do need to spend a little bit of our cash balance, and we're going to start doing that. The policy level requests in the general fund right now are $3,618,403. And they did change slightly from what was on the website, so just wanted to let you know. There was, in juvenile court, we reduced it slightly. The 2.5 FTEs that they're asking for had benefits doubled up, so I reduced that by $24,348. In Russellwood, they had an expense of $120,000. Oh, that's Russellwood. Never mind. Special fund. We'll get there. Sorry to jump ahead. Any questions on the general fund at this point before we move on to special funds? Okay. Should we wait for Commissioner Trask to come
No,
back
you can
in?
go ahead.
Yeah, she said.
I have a question on what you're gonna be doing on the policy level. Just wanna make sure, so currently, the sheriff's request, you have it at policy level, the Nisqually?
Yeah, so we do have that at policy level at this time, for a couple of reasons. One, just to highlight how expensive that is. And too, because the reason we're doing the Nisqually is because we haven't been able to fill positions. So we need to have a discussion about, do we want to move salaries and benefits that are budgeted down to operating like we're doing this year? Do we want to hold off on that and do that again next year?
And I appreciate that you did that, because that is a question we have to ask. And I just had noticed it, wanted to make sure that that is where it's at, because that's the appropriate place, so we can have that discussion.
Okay. So in your Excel workbooks, there's a couple of spreadsheets in here that show budget to actuals for the general fund for the last several years. So 2017 through 2023, we have actuals in revenue, and then 2024, the adopted budget and the proposed budget as of this date. So you can see the proposed budget, $70,478,994. That includes the beginning fund balance. And it's slightly less, the projection is slightly less than last year's and the year before, mainly due to the cash and there's a grant. We have $1 million, the jail study grant. So that was removed for next year, because that will be done this year. And the expenditure summary. Again, $70,478,994 is the projection at this moment.
I think you had the same one. Where's the revenue?
No, I mean, it's showing the cash, so it's
Oh,
a
sorry.
balanced
Okay.
budget, that's okay. The revenue, the pie charts are shown here. We have revenue. General fund is mainly funded by taxes, $25,628,000, and then we have other revenues shown here for the total of $43,978,994, which is projected at this time. Then we have the expense pie charts. The main expense in the general fund is salaries and benefits. And then we have the other expenses shown here. The next biggest expense is services at about $14.6 million. The expenditures by function, we have general government, $23,170,000 roughly, and then public safety is our next biggest, $23,245,000. Well, public safety is a little bit more expensive, but those are our two biggest expenses as far as function. And moving on to special funds. Our total special funds, the beginning fund balance is projected at $55,693,123. Total revenues, $56,768,891. The salaries and benefits are projected at $16,085,776. And total operating, $49,327,859. And you can see the total total expenditures, $112,462,014, which is balanced with the revenues. And total PLRs at this time for the special funds are $6,958,899 in expenditures. And we do have some revenue PLRs in the special funds, $1,478,410. And I believe all of these are for public works.
We budget to the dollar.
Yeah, Mark hates that. And we can change that, you know, I can round when we go to.
There's nothing wrong with what you're doing now.
I think it's funny when we give exact numbers on estimates, and so
Yeah.
it's good.
Maybe we can
So-
change that when we go to per diem.
That would be sweet.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
Why not? I think it's a conversation we should have.
So that's all we have on the overview for today, and so now we can move on to, today we have scheduled, where did my schedule go? Support services first, and then public works, and then the sheriff's office. And next week we have other departments on October 8th scheduled. So, for support services, we have parks and emergency management and human resources. So John, do you want to lead off with emergency management? You have an overtime PLR request of $3,800.
Yes, and that was based on the activation for Fire District 12, as well as looking at Helena, which just happened, and being able to look at. Traditionally, the county code reads that county employees will respond. However, they have to be trained to respond, which we're in the process of doing. So right now, I only have 3 staff that are able to respond to start any disaster oversight. So the overtime is to cover until we get staff within the county trained to respond, so that we can do what did not happen in Helena, which is what I'm understanding, is a local jurisdiction not being capable of receiving all the resources that's coming in right now because they're so devastated. So we want to ensure that we're activating, control those mechanisms as the state and federal government dumps resources into the impacted areas. So at the end, we're still accountable and we still have our systems in place. So the overtime is to cover some of the projections based on last year's storms. So since I've been here, we've activated 5 times. I don't know if that's because I'm here or how that works, but we've activated 5 times. Thank heavens we haven't had a large enough disaster where we've had to go in for reimbursement. So based on just that alone is how we calculated the overtime. It may not be spent, and again, it's rubbing that crystal ball and hoping we can get that appropriate number. So it seemed based on last year, that would be an appropriate number until we're able to get staff trained.
I was just reading something while I was in Oregon about the expected snowfall this year is supposed to be extreme up here, so this is the year we should be preparing for that. It happens in a cycle, 7-10 years, and I expected this is the one for us. So I'm in favor of moving something like that into a maintenance. I think it's absolutely necessary personally.
Are we doing that now, or are we
I
just
don't know,
getting that? I thought we were just running.
Yeah,
through
I was just
it.
making a comment. I'm
Sure,
not-
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I just, because I'm looking, so it was interesting, looking at all the PLR requests, just under $314,000 in overtime increases
Yeah.
in those PLRs.
Oh.
Pretty interesting, so might have to have a conversation about
Are we adequately staffed?
that, or just management, or, I mean, there's, so how we manage our staff and their time.
Okay.
And if I could add, what we traditionally did in the past was we used grant money to supplement salaries. The challenge is our grants don't stay consistent. So somewhere along the line, as that goes down, and we fold that into labor, we're gonna end up with a gap there. I prefer to do the labor piece and then use the grants for equipment updates, which we've been able to do exceptionally well, so that we can continue to be progressive, connect to the federal government, be able to share information outside of the county. So it's one of those things where we could move it around. But again, labor is one of those things, it's gonna be consistent, something we're gonna have to have, as well as the increase in CERT program. We've almost tripled in size of CERT, which is huge when you look at that being managed. I mean, those are volunteers and they're managed differently than everybody else. So it's being able to put the labor that's necessary to keep them current, involved, and part of the training program.
Now, on most, many grants, I think, majority of the grants, it's either 10 or 15% for admin cost. So are we taking from those grants and using that for admin? You know?
We haven't traditionally, and because we've had a lot of things that we've needed to upgrade. Communication systems, hardware, plus we're now sharing with the Sheriff's Department. They've got the mobile command unit, which we're able to share, so we're sharing some of our grant money with them as well, so that they're not coming in here. We have more grants that are available that we can use for mobile communication systems than the Sheriff's Department does. So it makes it easier to run those across, use that grant money, and then they're coming to the commission for smaller pieces of what they need to complete the program. So we don't traditionally use it for that. We do a lot of comp time, so I try not to get into overtime, but it's one of the challenges we run into at parks as well, is you get so much comp time, so much vacation, so much sick leave, that suddenly now I've got to use it or they lose it, and I'm not a proponent of staff losing sick leave and vacation time. It's just not something I found.
Comp time, and
Instead of overtime, are we talking training? The thing you were explaining was more training. Are you talking training or overtime?
Well, when we talk about training for staff, we don't calculate those pieces, and we don't calculate my staff into the training time, since both Bob Burgess and myself can train all the courses we're required to have. So the overtime is being able to activate, which is ensuring that, and a good example was the McEwen fire. One of the issues you folks had was getting accurate information in a timely manner, because you were being inundated with residents' calls saying what's going on. There was no link between us and Incident Command, which is ran by Fire and Natural Resources. So there was this big gap of information. So we had to create a stand-in piece of my staff, which now we link Incident Command with you folks, so you have real-time updated information. That's a consistent piece. But that means putting a staff member in our office to make sure phones are done, one at 911 to ensure that we're getting those calls that are coming in, and another one with the Incident Command piece that's traditionally ran by Fire and Natural Resources. So having a staff of 3, that's everybody deployed at the same time. We try to do that with virtually any incident that we have, until we're able to get county staff trained where they can fill these specific positions, which is, there's a lot of training that goes along with those.
So what else you got?
So before we move on, I just want to say my general feeling on overtime is that typically I think that departments should be able to absorb it really, because you know, a lot of times they won't have staff in the positions, and so they'll have budget available, but DEM is so small that they typically don't have that. So I do feel a little bit different about their department, yeah.
Because there's a lot of overtime requests.
There is, yeah, and I think that most of them are not, really, we don't really need to add them into the budget at this point. That's my general
Well, and
feeling.
historically, that's how we've done. We've gone back and told them that, you know, you can absorb because you have unexpended budget authority.
Yeah.
But this is different, I agree with you.
John, can I?
Go ahead.
John, how much grant revenue have you brought in this year, and then how much do you intend to bring in or go after for '25? And is that built into any of your budget?
It is. Most of it's in the equipment side. In the past, we've come in and asked for additional money for equipment. Now we're able to cover that, but our grants continue to go down. So the state Homeland Security grants, we usually get, when I first got here, it was around 18,000. Now it's down to 16,400, 16,500, so they are reducing those. So probably every year we bring in about 75,000, not counting the additional, because we've been really good at being able to go in and get additional funds that other jurisdictions turn back in at the end of the grant cycle. That's basically what we've been able to purchase most of our CERT equipment for. We have multiple trailers that are fully equipped now. We're upgrading our backpacks so that the ones, if you've had the CERT training, you get this mediocre backpack with this stuff and you really don't know how to use, and you use it once and you've got to get rid of it. So now we're going into a more robust backpack and then making members sign for that backpack, so it's
Are
accountable.
we making them go through a refresher course too?
We are.
Because I'll be doing that.
Well, so what we're trying to do is get the training built in, so every weekend, or not every weekend, but through a training schedule, they're meeting, they're talking to each other, they're looking at their communication pieces and inventorying their equipment, so that they know that have it. Because each major CERT group now has a CERT trailer, which has got the chainsaw, all the equipment in it that they need to include communications, and we've moved to not satellite, but we've moved to solar generators. So we're not using gas and things of that nature. That was one of the problems we found, is you would put these generators in the trailer, they wouldn't use them that often, they wouldn't be sustainable with the maintenance piece. With the solar generators, it's slapping a panel up and they're ready and able to operate fairly quickly, and there's no additional maintenance piece that goes with that.
And then from the planning document side of the grant equation, are we good on all of our planning documents to be able to go after funding?
Actually, more so. We're now helping, we just found out one of the big pieces was the community wildland fire protection program. Well, we're not required to have one of those because we don't have fire protection as a county. We're relying on everyone else. However, as a good partner, we are assisting the local fire districts and the special purpose districts in developing their plan so that we can be part of that plan as well. And it's just a good neighborly thing to do that we be part of that plan. So that's one of the plans that we are updated. But the challenge that comes with that is to apply for the grant to do the planning piece, you have to have one. Well, we don't have one, so we're trying to fix that piece, which is the simplest way we can to be able to apply for those grants, because it costs pretty close to $125,000 to do one of those plans. So they're not inexpensive at all, and they're pretty comprehensive when you look at fire loads and things of that nature, and being able to calculate that. And for, I think it was 2010, those are the last fire load grants that have been offered by the forestry. So we've got many years of that building up in our forests, which adds to that danger level.
Do you work with our private timber companies on helping with those plans? Do they provide any
Not a whole
financial or
lot.
expertise?
They traditionally say, well, we got it, we got a plan. So what we are asking them to do is provide their plan, so I can see where those gaps are between what we're gonna do, what they're going to do, and that's basically what we're looking at. I'm trying not to make them change a whole lot, because that's where I find we run into difficulty, is when they look at that change piece, it's us being able to fill those gaps, which we've been fairly successful at.
Thank you.
So our next department that has PLRs is Human Resources and Risk Management. Neary, did you want to take that?
Good morning. So HR has some asks around overtime as well. These are specifically because we had a transfer of previously exempt employees to non-exempt based on the updated FLSA standards. We have existing civil service meetings once a month that are after hours. We also now, if there's training and travel that's approved, we need to be able to pay in case there's overtime costs incurred from training and travel for those non-exempt employees. The other asks that Human Resources and Risk have are, again, around training and travel. A lot of them are moving back to in-person, and more travel is required. We have, development plans, as I put in my strategic plan, for each employee in HR, which includes continuing education to remain current in the field. Just a couple of the trainings we attend are, civil service conference, public records officer, industrial safety and health, the benefits, all of the labor management, labor negotiations, perk trainings that we go to, and then also risk pool items as they come up.
have you had employees, any return funds, unexpended budget authority due to employees not being on the payroll?
Say that one more time, I'm sorry.
Vacancies.
Yeah, do you have vacancies that have not?
Salary savings?
Yes.
No,
Okay.
we're fully staffed right now. However, we have been fortunate in getting some tuition reimbursements from like the risk pool. Sometimes we can get some, they're not grants, tuition assistance or,
Yeah,
something
tuition
like that. From other areas like SHRM or mostly risk pool though. So some of these may be returned, but I like to be safe, I'm sorry.
Any other questions for them?
For me.
Okay.
So our next department that has PLRs is Parks and Trails. And they have 128,255 listed here, but Diane gave me one yesterday that is not listed. It's 16,500 for UTVs to be used at MCRA, Sandhill Park, Truman Glick. And I don't know, Cassidy, if you want to speak to any of that, or...
John, do you want me to?
Yeah, I wanted to start first by just explaining that our labor levels have virtually remained the same for years. The challenge we have had is we've kind of redirected REAP projects, so that traditionally we had an employee that did more REAP projects than something else, but with the growth in the parks, so for an example, Belfair's usage of the fields have gone up 23%. And that's a fairly large number when you look at the amount of people that we have. And it's distance away from here that they have to travel, as well as softball, baseball folds into soccer, which then extends the season. So in the past, we were able to get the fields ready and have enough time to do that, to prepare them for winter, so that the next spring, it would be in good use for ball. But with soccer going further into the season, the ability to prepare those fields and to keep them safe, because of course soccer uses different cleats, the pitch is different, and so what's happening is the overuse is making it virtually exceptionally difficult to keep those fields in a good shape to be used for baseball. So that's one challenge we have. MCRA is growing about 19%, which is, when you figure those programs itself, that's a pretty good increase. And nationally, since COVID, parks during COVID grew about 39% nationally, and they're seeing that it hasn't reduced. People are continuing to use parks and trails. The other piece that we have is we used to have money where we could do clearing of trails and things of that nature. Right now, we just have staff to sustain. And some things we can do based on emergency or unprojected. But going in and clearing trails and being able to do the outer edges of parks is one of those things that becomes difficult to do with the amount of staff that we have, which is one of the reasons we asked for one more staff member and additional summertime to get these fields prepared and ready to go. Because these people are rotating in and out along with adult programs, and they're talking about bringing in flag football as an organized sport. We only have so many fields, so the ability to have it available to everybody equally is one of the challenges that we're running into with the limited amount of staff that we have.
So Commissioners, historically, one of the things we've done in the past, and I think you were here, Kevin, during that time when we reached into REIT in order to do some, it didn't create a true employee thing, FTE for full time. We were able to expend monies and able to utilize it out of REIT, so it didn't come out of the general fund. So if we consider that we are in a situation where we want to be careful with that, that's an option to consider. What else you got?
The UTVs. When we did our parks tour with the board, and we got out to Truman Glick, and I'm not a proponent of having equipment that's not working or doesn't work efficiently and effectively. The park host out there says, well, when it stops, I have to carry a battery charger because it won't start again once he shuts it off. So it's being able to rotate through that equipment and talking with Bud, we traditionally rotate through equipment. We just don't have another one that's available. Bringing another one into the inventory would allow us to shift so that we have the ability to get workable equipment out to park hosts so that they can use it efficiently, effectively, and safely. So that was one of the later requests for the UTV, is we didn't really notice the shape they were in until we were able to get out there, do some park tours, and see the shape that they're in. And because of where Truman Glick is distance-wise, as well as Walker Park, it makes it a little bit more difficult to get around without some of those pieces of equipment.
Yeah.
So that's why we're requesting an additional UTV so that we can start shifting the ones we have over to make sure that they're still functional.
What's the age of the current one you have, or ones you have?
20 years old.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
So
we
it's pretty-
literally
that's pretty
used
good
it
life-
forever, yeah, I mean,
lifespan
it's,
there.
yeah.
Cammy was 4 when they bought it.
I was gonna say before they just used donkeys or what, that's how old it is.
You also have a tractor purchase on there?
We do. That one's old as well.
20 years old.
Yeah, it's 20, so
Yeah.
About the
It was
same
a
year.
hand-me-down
Yeah.
from Public Works also.
Oh,
So the tractor that you have there, what's the working condition of it? The reason why I'm asking that is this something we should wash down to another entity, or perhaps even somebody from the outside? We have a cemetery district, I know this in
I think it's really close. I mean, I would not feel comfortable giving it to somebody else because it's getting to the point where we're literally gonna have to start replacing parts on a consistent basis.
I think that the challenge that they were having after talking with Diane was the hydraulic system in it. So obviously, most of the equipment that they use require hydraulics. The bucket on the front of the tractor requires hydraulics, and it's in pretty bad shape, to the point where they feel like it's gonna have to be replaced in order for it to continue to operate effectively for them. So I'm not sure, but looking into that and seeing if it could be washed down to another entity that is in need of a tractor like that, I'm all about looking at that.
And I would say if you don't have one and need one,
It might
yes.
suffice.
If you have one and you're looking for a replacement, probably it's not gonna be efficient and effective for that.
One thing to note also is that the hydraulics, fixing them is in the maintenance level budget for 2025, and I believe that was about $8,000.
So you could take that out if they approve the purchase.
Yeah.
Okay.
Glad you keep all that together in your head.
Mhm.
No, that's well done.
Enterprise lease these?
that's what I
They
was
probably would.
Okay, what else you got?
Is it for Parks and
Yeah,
Trails?
It's it for Parks and Trails.
I do want to add one.
You didn't have any?
So
Easy.
for the maintenance, the FTE, if that is something that does not get approved, we put in an additional PLR for the extra helpline to be increased because we were not able to keep our staff that we needed, all 3 of our seasonals this year. We had to cut them early because we could not afford with the current line that we had to afford them through the season. So we asked for that increase if we don't get a full-time.
And our employees carry a lot of comp over, I mean, they would rather take the comp time. The challenge is when you start reaching those upper levels, is that working them consistently every weekend because of what's going on with the rotation of sports programs, and they're right back to back.
What do we have in their overtime? Can you access that?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Realize comp time's a little bit different than overtime, so
I'm just looking to see if there's any cash available.
just in terms of, and maybe Mary can kind of help me on this one, but for leave, then you have to request leave to get approved for use of vacation leave. For comp time, I think that there's different rules around comp time. Obviously, there isn't,
I mean, like accrual and use, but they still have to go through the same process to
the
request.
use side of it, we could still deny the use of comp time? Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like vacation.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
Just what they
Never
can
mind.
carry and accrue is sometimes a little different.
Okay.
They have how much?
$300.
Yeah, no savings there. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We were lucky this year that Parks was on the ball and got their advertisements out early for seasonal help, and we're able to fill all 3 positions. I think that is, since I've been here, that was a new thing, right? So thank you to HR and Parks to work together to get those in there, but having 3 individuals there for the entire season, as towards the end of the season, they ran out of budget for them and had to let them go, so.
One thing to keep in mind, if we do move some money over from REIT, you can talk to Kelly, because we did that with him at one point with employees until we were able to put things back together again. There's more work that's involved with that, because you have to literally justify each part that it's an allowed use within the REIT. So you might want to keep in touch with Kelly on that.
We still do that.
Yeah, and Parks does that still.
Yeah.
So they're familiar with what is allowable REIT projects. And when staff are working on those REIT projects, they do track their time associated with it. I see it on the timesheets that come through, so that is still a part of that.
What we were able to do though, in order to get the best use of it, we'd take certain projects and literally dedicate the project to REIT in order to have larger sums of money to work around.
And we have one employee that did more REIT projects. However, because of the upkeep and the maintenance that's now required, we moved him out of REIT and more into regular projects. So I would expect if another position was approved, we would start that the same way. We would, because we have plenty of REIT projects
Absolutely.
that need to be done, we just haven't had the opportunity.
And it's still dollar in, dollar out. The thing I'm looking at is being able to keep the general fund numbers and having REIT come in as cash in as well as cash out. That's what I'm looking at there for keeping the bottom line closer. Okay, what else we got?
I think that's it for support services.
I'm sorry, I made you come in.
That's okay.
Do you have,
I'll take a couple mil if I can get it.
No.
Commissioners, do you have any questions or anything for?
Not right
Thank you.
now.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, you guys are good to go.
So next we have Public Works.
So out of the hot seat, back to work.
REIT project, here we go.
Come on up. Oh, Mike, Richard, you guys gotta come up too.
We got the full crew.
Yeah, the whole
We get the
crew.
real mic?
Yeah,
We got the
the real Mike.
He has no idea what we're talking about because he's not here when he's, when.
We make fun of people when they come and on the agenda item, it says, it's Mike. So we just call them all Mike.
Oh, maybe I'll change the agenda item.
You're taking all the fun out of it. Come on now. Mary's seat's nice and warm.
Warm seats.
Yeah, that's fine.
hot
Much
seat,
better
yeah.
than that cold one back there.
Okay, so these are actually different.
So Public Works, of course, has quite a few funds. And a lot of these items really probably are truly maintenance, but all the capital, I just automatically put that in as a PLR, just so that it goes in front of the board. So with road, they have $1,266,000 in policy level requests. And if you want to start with roads and explain what you're doing, or I can talk about it either way.
Sure.
Got what then?
Mike, you want to tell us about all the great equipment you're purchasing, planning to purchase, and what we're doing with it?
Well, the F-550s are just a facade because we never buy them anyway. Because they haven't been available for 2 years now, but we're trying. So the striping machine is something we looked at this year. We actually purchased a small striper, a parking lot type striper. But the guys have really embraced it, and they've accomplished over 50 miles, centerline miles this year. So, and our striper, the contract striper, hasn't actually shown up yet, and so we're getting into the late part of the season stuff. So, what we've been looking at is an actual larger striping machine, something like a $400,000 striping machine. What I'd like to do, we have our we have our budget for striping about 450,000. I'd like to take about 200,000 of that and then 200,000 from ER&R to buy a striping machine. That would leave me enough for buying paint too for next year. And then in 2026, actually pay back ER&R the other half. I could reduce my striping budget from 450,000 down to about 200,000. And so we can
Yearly?
buy more asphalt that way.
Wow.
Yeah.
And the paint itself has gone up and up, so we're able to do fewer road miles.
Yeah, what we tried to accomplish this year, went out to bid, was really gonna be about $675,000 for paint striping. We only have 450 budgeted, so we had to reduce the number of roads we actually striped. But us doing it ourselves made it to where we could do those roads too, so.
Well, you've already proven over and over again, you take it on and do it internally, you're successful. That's something
Yes.
that you've proven.
Yes.
Save us money.
Yeah, maybe we can even look at some of those reflective paints if it's ours.
Yeah.
Be nice to
Yeah,
have
we
that
have a piece of
conversation.
equipment that can
There's
apply it,
paint-
yeah.
Yeah, there's paint out there that other places use that are reflective paint, and it's.
One of the other important parts of this, I think, is from a risk management perspective. So when our roads crews say that things need to be striped, if the contractor can't come in and stripe it right away, then the period of time that we're waiting from when it needs to be done to when it actually gets done, potential liability for the county that we've actually had to pay on before, so I think it's
I
important.
get calls on that one, I do. People are upset that we redo a road and get it all set up and then don't do anything to do it. They
Well,
blame us if they cross the line that doesn't exist.
Yeah, reflective markers are not nearly as clear as actual paintings.
Yeah.
So that's what we're proposing on that. Then we have, we've got some, what other equipment there, what did we talk about, another building? Yeah, storage building, that's right, yeah. So, and the HVAC, that's something that's been wrong
Forever,
with
yeah.
Public Works ever since the building was built, so.
My
I was gonna say,
eighth budget, my eighth time seeing
I
that.
was gonna say, you give me the example of the F-550 being a unicorn, it
Yeah.
doesn't exist.
So, yeah, that's some stuff that we would like to look at. Again, we're trying to purchase a couple F-550s this year. If they actually come in, we may not need to expend next year, but we'll just keep putting it in the budget and
Hoping they come
hoping
in.
that they'll show up one day.
Yeah, the conference room, that was completed this year, so at the time of the budget submittal, we weren't sure, so Steph included that, but Kelly said that our wonderful IT folks knocked that off, so.
Where would you put the storage shed?
In the back, in our backward,
The
kind of the sign shop area,
Yeah,
yeah.
we have-
We've got some equipment that needs to be undercover and protected because we've got some electrical.
That's our new
Issues.
APADs, the automatic flagging devices. I don't know if you've been by any construction projects, we use those now. They thought they were really dumb at first until they realized that, hey, this is really nice. I can walk around, I can set the truck, I don't have to be right here in harm's way. And so, but they're really sensitive electronically, weather-wise, and so we would like to have more storage for that equipment.
And how much have those saved us as far as a risk, you know, for,
Flagger
Probably.
versus, yeah,
right, priceless.
yeah. Can't really put a value to that.
I switched it to the PLR list. I think this will be less confusing to go through. And then you have the capital software and the land improvements. 270,000 in the capital software.
But that also includes the HVAC stuff that was done in '24.
The HVAC is.
I'm looking at
included.
capital software, line item of
Yeah,
235.
235.
Oh,
The lines are kind of hard to track.
oh,
across.
yes, I was thinking the HVAC was up here. I don't know why that would be in capital software. But, but we can look at moving that around.
I think that's where it was coded this year,
Oh,
so just
okay.
forward it.
Yep.
So there's a 36,000 for machinery and equipment?
That is for election equipment, so that'll be explained on the 8th.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought this was all county roads, so there's just
Yeah,
three
just
line
the
items.
three
there.
line
Okay.
items
Over
for
here.
county.
For roads, all right,
Yep.
sorry. Thank you.
So the total is the 1.266 million.
Just pay attention.
Yeah. So the North County shop planning, I just want to highlight that one, Commissioners, we've talked about that also, but we really need to kind of get serious about what's available space-wise, what makes sense in terms of operations, and then, like frankly, I'm hearing John talk about having to shuttle people and equipment back and forth all the way up to Sand Hills, so we might also want to think about, is that a co-location item also?
Right, we do
To
have
minimize
property.
the travel time
We have property up by
for
Sand Hill.
parks, we do.
And where is it located?
Yeah, right across from the school and just south of the Sand Hill facility.
Oh, wow.
I think, didn't we drive by there? I mean, it's
I'm sure we
beautiful
have.
timber. Oh, no, Commissioner Traskey, we did
Yeah, we
on
did.
one of our trips, but it's
Yeah.
beautifully timbered property, kind of overlooking the estuary there. But yes, we need to get serious
And
about
that's
that.
more space than what you currently have?
It is.
And where your space currently is kind of in a residential neighborhood?
It is. Mhm.
So do we get complaints about?
We don't, actually. We're
Good.
good neighbors and folks kind of,
And it
sometimes
was
they
there
like
before they
that.
were.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes they like that, you know, that the plows are right there in their backyard.
That's right,
Yeah,
yeah.
usually,
Yeah,
Yeah,
my
there's
street
the
gets
benefit of
done
that.
first,
That's
yeah.
right.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, Commissioners, do you want to go through and approve some of these today for Public Works so that we don't come back to them necessarily?
I'd kind of like to wait to
Okay.
see what all of the requests are.
Okay.
and just
I
a,
mean-
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, it's up to, that's just me.
I was just gonna say too, because we hadn't really talked about this part of things, even with, when we were on support services, but when there's a PLR that's a revenue, are we just accepting all of the revenue?
No, so the reason that I put PLRs in revenue is because I'm not positive what it's for. And so I feel like it needs to be explained.
So if we don't do the project, we may not get the revenue. So we have to make sure, but we just need to make sure that's explained to us because we also don't want to pass up on a project if we have the revenue.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe a new grant that they're applying for, so
Yeah, a new
commissioners
grant
need to
that-
be aware of that.
Yeah, that possibly hasn't been brought to the board. And for Public Works, I mean, some of these I think were brought to the board, but they were coded under like miscellaneous revenue. So I really wanted to make sure that they don't get put into the budget as a grant under miscellaneous revenue. So it's really just to highlight those items and
It
make
was
sure we
'cause-
come back
And
to
that
them.
one's
The
because
bars
of the
line.
chart of accounts,
Yeah.
because there was no
Okay.
bars line at this
Yeah.
point.
Okay.
So it's not like we were
Yeah.
trying to
No.
sneak that sucker in.
No.
It had to do with the whole chart
I
of
had to roll them up
conversion.
into
Sneak
existing.
in all the revenue you want.
Right.
So I think just from a consistency perspective, probably my preference for today is just, and for the workshops that we have scheduled with departments, just to have them run through everything, and then, we have an opportunity, if we need to ask follow-up questions, we can do that, but I think I'm more interested in just hearing the presentations and then having a chance to consider everything as a whole and then make decisions at our
Okay.
subsequent meetings.
Sounds good.
And that gives us a chance to, we've done here in the recent past, we just go through, we can blow through a lot of it. If there's
Yeah.
something that we're questionable about, we'll bring amendments we've done.
Okay.
Then just blow right through it.
Yeah.
Definitely gives you a better perspective of the entire picture,
Right.
right? So I'm supportive of
And I
that.
think, obviously, it's a little bit different when you're dealing with the road fund, there aren't the same constraints on it as you have in the general fund, but I think from a consistency standpoint, it probably makes the most sense.
Yeah, similar with our utilities, so.
Mhm.
Independent, and you guys are aware of that, but still you get to look at the whole picture and kind of, if, especially when we're wanting to supplement
Right.
with external funds, right? So being able to see what those needs are within our utility funds and knowing that that
Right.
potentially is gonna be coming from the general fund, I don't think that that's a bad approach to take.
Because we do have ARPA in here, I noticed,
Mhm.
for some of that, so, yeah, I like the big picture.
All right, do you want to move on to the landfill? Is that the next one?
Mhm.
For the ARPA? I thought we done by the end of this year.
Yeah, the ARPA
Oh,
transfer out to
ARPA
Belfair.
transfer out to Belfair.
I think that was.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a just in case. We still need to obligate our design funds for the two projects. So,
And
it's
for-
a, oh, go ahead,
Oh,
Jen.
sorry, for that one, if we get, I mean, we're almost to the end of the year now.
Yeah.
If you don't think that is a possibility that it's going to, or if it's an unlikely possibility that we're going to pay for that this year, my recommendation would be that we find other things to bill it to within Belfair. And then we can transfer that money in.
Okay.
Even salaries if possible, as long as we're not double dipping, just something that we can.
Mhm.
Similar to
Well,
what we
we'd
did with
we'd have to,
Russellwood.
we
Yeah.
definitely have to look at the intent of the authorization that money came in for. And if we need to modify that, then that would need to be modified too, wouldn't you
Right.
think?
We would have to change the project, yes. We would have to get board approval
Yep.
to do that.
Okay.
And that has to be done by the end of the year.
Yes, we have to have all funds obligated by the end of the year, and so that means we need to have contracts in place. And so it really, I mean, it could go next year, but I mean, if we can, we might as well finish it up this year.
The challenge with ARPA money is that you have this time period of when the money actually has to be expended, of 2026. And so I think people think, oh, I've got 2 more years to do it. The rules are telling us from the federal government that they have to be obligated. So the definition of obligation has been something that's been tossed around in financial worlds for a while. I think the federal government has came out with additional clarifying language within their documentation to kind of open up or broaden what obligation is. And one potential is obligated or associated with salaries. So if in fact, I think that's what you were talking about, Jen, is if we wanted to obligate that money, transfer it into Belfair, we just need to identify what those expenditures are. And we know that we're going to have salaries and wages in there, so.
Yeah. Yeah. The other option, and I don't think that you particularly like this option.
Then don't say it.
Oh, now I really want to hear it.
I mean, we could bill it against something in the general fund and then transfer that money into Belfair for this purpose. I mean, as a separate transaction, you know, so long as what we're billing to ARPA is what you've obligated it for. I mean, we can use general fund to pay for that within Belfair. So it would be kind of a two-part thing.
Well,
Mark, let's hear from you.
Let's say there's benefit to that. The benefit to that is what we talked about in the beginning, the ability to keep it clean and complete control. But it doesn't amount for other things and other work and other, but there's nothing wrong with that idea because it allows us to at least make sure it's moved out. I'm talking to Mark directly, sorry.
Mark's like,
I'm not saying we should do that, I'm just saying I understand how that is because that's one of the things we talked about at the beginning. Making sure that we have enough stuff in our general fund in our side of the house that we can cover it to make sure that money's expended without a tail of lost dollars behind it.
Definitely don't want to lose the dollars, so I'm willing to do whatever.
Not whatever, I mean,
Well, to a point, yeah. I think my point on that is that the history of stuff. So as we look at things 5 years down the road, if we are moving money from Belfair into cover general fund expenditures, then transferring it out in the future to actually cover the cost, then 5 years from now, I'll look back at it and say, well, why did we transfer $175,000 out of the general fund to support Belfair in 2025, when in 2025, Belfair wasn't in the same position it was back in 2020. So that, I think that's my most compelling argument for why I like to keep it where it's at, because then it creates that history that I can look back at and say, hey, what'd you use the ARPA money for? Very clear picture. I don't have to have Jen's steel trap that says, well, don't forget, remember we did this and this and this.
But she documents, well, but the other part is, as you just used the term history of stuff, along with that line, you ought to say, when it comes to everybody else, relying on them to take care of the money, oops. History tells us over and over again, we're gonna get oops at the end, quite a few of them. And this would avoid some of those oops, so.
So I guess what's the barrier to obligating that money or spending that money?
We need to get an RFQ out. So obligation, as I understand it, is executing a contract.
Correct.
So if we can execute a contract with the design firm before year end, we're good.
We only have a couple months.
And
Yeah,
that's,
but if you do it under
That's
the
right
other,
here.
we don't have to worry about that,
Correct.
Yeah.
so.
So, yeah, your guys' choice.
Well, right now, if she's
Jen's
still
usually
doing, if
right.
she's still doing it, then we'll know.
So if we walked backwards from the end of this year to today, what, like, how long would you have to
usually
have a RFQ out there?
a month, 2 weeks to review, month and a half, month to execute the contract.
So
So
we're
it's
pretty darn
doable, so
close to the end
October,
of the
November,
year.
December, but we're there.
But-
So I thought
And
the
then-
RFQ already went out, but no, so, I mean, I just feel like it's
It
getting.
did not.
Okay,
No, we have not
Okay.
issued an RFQ for this.
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm getting nervous that, I mean, now we're down to 3 months and, I mean, I would rather bill it against something
Wages.
else.
Like I said, it doesn't bother me
Yeah.
to do that, but if
I
it
don't
bothers
know
you, I
that
don't
we-
want us to.
No, I'm perfectly, I'm fine with it. I mean, I'll have to.
I'd do that, but at the end of the day, like, the RFQ still needs to go out.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
like, I don't wanna lose the opportunity to actually do that work.
Or the heat too.
So, I mean, I think
Gone.
I'd be comfortable kind of executing Jen's plan if I see an RFQ.
Okay.
Oh,
So let's get the RFQ out, and, but no,
So
this is
the-
exactly what I talked about in the very beginning, when I was talking about the redundancy aspect, and this is how we would cover ourselves. What else you got?
So we have the landfill.
all right, Richard.
So we got transfer station booth upgrades, that'd be Hoodsport and Cushman, $140,000. I'll tell you what we're planning to do there is provide basic services for our employees. You know, water and restrooms. So that's kind of what we got going there. Hill's transfer station improvements, $200,000. That hasn't been touched in 30-plus years. So that's what we're looking at there. And then I got Belfair's transfer station site improvements. Just for clarity, I gotta ask Loretta, is that where, because there's just so many things on here. I
Yeah,
think that is,
that's actually same thing, scoping, like same, where would a new transfer
Right.
station be located?
Right.
Is our existing facility, so it's a facility plan, basically. Can we do anything with the existing facility? If not, let's not even look further.
right.
And then find a site that's suitable to place a scale, do what we want to do to serve the Belfair North End community.
Well, and that facility is so small, and with Belfort growing as fast as it's growing.
Right.
we're
They
gonna
already
have
just
to-
skip right by it anyway. It doesn't get near the use that it would have gotten
Right, it
if,
should.
because we don't have a scale, we don't have any of that stuff.
It's very inconvenient.
Yeah.
I mean, placement,
So
so.
would it be possible to look at that, the other property and maybe put the
Shop.
shop and that facility close to each other?
We actually have an opportunity that may be coming up for us that we haven't considered. I'm looking at it right now and considering it for the schools because of the conversations that are going down there. But if we do the Razor Road, that opens up a lot of opportunities with access, better access and everything, and opportunities for the counties to have inexpensive properties that is easily accessible in a large enough size. That is both easy to connect with Allen and Belfair and get out. It's just something we might want to consider.
Do we have any property on Razor Road that we could know?
But that property is very affordable. Especially up towards the beginning of it because it's the most cut off from access. The beginning,
So
Highway 3
purchase
area.
it before you put in the Razor Road?
It's still, even when you put in a road, it still takes a long time for properties to change for value and stuff like that. They just, unless you're right on it right away, but I would expect that we wouldn't want to be directly on the road. We'd be smart if we were back a little ways. Perhaps, we have a plant that is also back in that area for our sewer and everything. There's properties around that would give us access. And it's just an idea, because when we started talking about that, and somebody threw that at me about the schools, I'd never even contemplated it. It made so much more sense to place a school there if it's gonna happen in certain areas, because it might be walkable for Lakeland Village and stuff like that, and accessible with new access that doesn't come directly onto the highway. So the same argument could go here. Just an idea.
Okay, so, and then the booth upgrades, that's a reallocation. Richard and Kevin both have done some good groundwork. That was one of our work plan items this year, as you remember. But they've had some issues in just procuring, so definitely getting through specs and preliminaries, but there's more work to be done. We need to go through a pre-app, get with planning and building and looking at permitting and
Yep.
getting all of that nailed down as well. And let's see, and also in the equipment itself, the loader and the excavator, this is a bit over-programmed, so we've got a bit more money in there than we think we're going to need.
Amen.
But we're still working through that with Pete in terms of what and when do we
I
really
was
need
to say,
to
historically, that's how you've
replace.
done it anyway.
Yeah.
But that's
so
why
we'll-
there's extra at the end of the year, so
Yeah.
that's not a bad thing, it's just,
Yeah, so we'll, when that, if this is approved, we will still be coming to you when it comes time to actually go out and procure the equipment.
My computer is getting low on power, just,
So move it along.
yeah, let's get this done.
Are you throwing that by the PLR?
So what else you got?
Bigger
just
batteries?
saying if it dies.
Plug into Dietrich's little thing over here,
Yeah, we got
Got
a,
a plug-in right down here.
battery
Okay.
generator thing here, we can probably get you
Yeah,
hooked
okay.
into.
I can go grab my power cord.
And
Oh,
then,
yeah, don't unplug that.
It'll last a little while. It might be able to make it through Public Works and then we can break further.
okay, let's get this thing done, then what else you
Okay,
got?
we
Loretta?
gotta go to North Bay
So,
then, right?
Yeah, North
Yep.
Bay. We already talked a little bit about the revenue, so that was a commerce grant. That was our legislative ask, right, last session. So that finally came through. And some of those items that you see on the expenditures up above will be paid for from that commerce grant.
so we haven't received the money yet, we're supposed to
That's
receive it next year,
correct.
okay.
It's reimbursement basis.
Yep. Yeah, so the facility plan is underway. We're already spending on that. So we continue to have expenditures next year. Victor Creek, the DOT project was delayed, so that was also planned to be expended this year, but now needs to be rolled over into '25 because of their project delays.
I think that's what that Commerce grant, most of that's going to.
No, it isn't.
Is it?
Nope.
Okay.
I mean, it could, but basically,
Wanted
we had
to-
identified the equipment for
All right.
purchases. I guess it really doesn't matter.
So
No.
that grant, though, it's in the plan for the state, but it hasn't been awarded yet? Is that what you're saying, or?
No, the grant has been awarded.
Okay.
Jen. But what I was referring to for the state, the state highway, they've got a fish passage project. And as a result, we have to relocate our force main. And that's
Okay.
to the tune of about $200,000. Yeah.
And will that happen at the same time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, DOT, actually, Richard and DOT work together wonderfully in terms of using consultant services to do the design and
Yep.
looping that into their design, or their contract itself. So we just pay the contractor and off they go, and we have a very small role in that.
We've got 2 customers that'll be affected. That's it. We'll be dealing with them on a as-needed basis
Okay,
during this.
2 customers, okay.
Yep.
Okay, what else you got?
That's not common for
No.
DOT to work with. So I'm glad to hear that.
Yep, and then Russellwood, Richard, real quickly, we've got some things happening there
Okay.
for the water system.
Yes, and
And
it's,
it's a misnomer, sorry, when it says water system plan,
I know it.
it's just a really bad description in
It's
that
a
bottom
terrible
line
description.
item.
And I can't get rid of it.
Yeah, I know, we wanna get rid of it.
Gosh.
But anyway, what are we doing in that line item, Richard?
Well, there's a lot. I mean, we've got a lot that came just due to permit. We got a new permit and there's some new requirements, and part of that is a receiving water study, and after the receiving water study, that'll dictate to us what our outfall replacement and repair will be. Of course, we'll have to design and plan for that, so the repair won't happen next year, but more towards the end of the permit. What else have we got? Transfer payment, grant funding.
We've got a thing that says transfer out of the general fund. Is that a transfer out of the general fund, or is it a transfer out of REIT? What are we looking at there?
Not
So that is a request for a transfer out of the general fund, yes.
Supplement their operational costs that are not covered by their rates.
Can we do it out of 09?
I don't believe so. We're already transferring their debt payment out of 09, or no, out of REIT 2. But 09, I mean, it would have to be, I don't, maybe for the facility plan updates. For 09, possibly.
Maybe, I mean, that's what we're doing that work in-house, so it's not like we're paying
Okay.
consultant services, and if you could use that to pay for wages.
Just every 100,000 makes a difference on the bottom line of the general fund, so we can, just something to consider to look at,
Yeah, I'll look at that.
please.
Um,
Okay, what else we got?
And
Russellwood is a utility, though, that we know we're gonna have to supplement. Okay.
The question is, though, does it have to come
Where
out of
does
the
it come from?
out of the bottom
Yes.
line of the general fund, which we're at a certain point on, or can it come out of a special fund?
Okay,
That's the,
okay.
Yeah.
I'm
And our-
excited about the facility plans, because I think that one of the things you heard from our planning commission was they wanted more detail with these facility plans. Do we get some of that
Be
detail?
aware what they ask for.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, these are documents which we shared with them, so it's figuring out how to boil that down in readily, easily digested material,
Oh, okay.
basically.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we've
Yeah.
got 5 utilities, and some come with 3 binders. I mean, if I stacked them up, it's like, you want, it's really hard to narrow it down for them. I mean, it's doable, but
But bottom line, I mean, what they really need to see is what's our capital plan for the
Correct.
next 6 years and for the next 20 years, and what of that plan is related to growth, and what of that plan is just because it's time to replace
I'm sure you've been
things.
talking to Jeff Carey, and you know what he wants exactly, because
Oh, yeah.
that's what he does, so I
Yeah.
would be surprised if you haven't been talking to him.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's great.
So what else you got?
So,
totally reasonable.
Just wanna make sure she doesn't run out of juice before
Yep.
this is,
no, it's still early. Beards Cove, the AC pipe replacement project.
AC pipe, yeah, that's,
Yep.
we've been talking, we've
Keep
talked
plugging
about
away
it.
on that.
Let's keep going away.
And hydrants, I really want to get that done, but if not, we're planning for that also next year, but we're pushing hard
We're
to
gonna
get
get
that
at
done
least 2 of
this
the
year.
defective ones done with this project, with the AC pipe
The
replacement.
Larson and
stuff.
Larson project.
Yeah.
And, yes, the revenue is for we're anticipating that coming in, the reimbursement coming in after, next year. And, what else?
The loans, we're just waiting for signatures so I can get a real
Okay.
amortization schedule.
Yep. So the loan agreement that the board executed, the amendment on Monday, we need to get that signed and back to Commerce, and then we can have our amortization schedule with a real life number there.
I was told there was just one more signature needed.
Okay. So welfare, sewer, capital.
I know I don't have a great description here.
All right, so you have the budget for the expenditures on this. I see down below you have a revenue of 455. Is that the income?
Yes,
Okay, that's the income for that?
for 400, yep, for 455 of it. So we've got, part of this is the SCADA and the building damage repair.
Yes.
Because I have the same question for two lines down under the
Good
Belfast
job.
Sewer Extension. To PSIC, you have expenditure, but you're saying it's remaining on grant and capacity design grant, but I don't see the revenue.
Oh, that is if.
Okay, but if you
So
have
that's,
an if you
time
have
out,
an if
that's a big,
expenditure,
that's a big if,
but if you have an if expenditure, shouldn't you have the if
revenue.
revenue? Just,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, there's no revenue in. We missed that one.
And it's possible that I moved
Just
it over into maintenance,
Yeah.
which that's probably what happened.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because that number always looks better
Yeah.
when you have the
Yeah.
revenue coming in
Yes.
as well as the
Yeah.
expenditure.
Yeah, if there was an existing grant line, which I'm guessing is what happened, then I moved it into
You thought that
maintenance.
that was the same
Yeah.
grant line. Yeah, but this would be a new grant, Jen.
Okay,
Yeah.
then I'm not sure what
It's
happened.
probably a roll-up, it's probably another one of the
Well,
roll-ups.
It's nothing we can't, it's nothing we can't fix. We
No.
see it, now
Yeah.
we fix it and it's done. No big deal, definitely. So what else you got?
And I think that is it. We already talked about the ARPA.
The ARPA, yeah.
Yeah.
And-
And then we already talked about the ER&R, so that's the other half of the striper that we discussed in the Undersheriff fund.
Commissioners, any questions for roads and utilities?
Yeah.
You made you sit up here for that?
It was nice seeing you.
Yeah.
It's to make sure you know
Everybody can say, get to the table, come on, table, yeah. No, that's actually Dave wearing a mic mask. Come
Oh,
on,
there
so
we
know.
There's
All right,
that.
all right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
So do you want to take a break? Okay, so we'll take a break for how long?
5 minutes?
Is that enough for you?
10?
So let's take a 10-minute break. We will return at 10:30.
Is the sheriff coming in?
I think they're probably waiting outside, I would guess.
All right, welcome back, everybody. We're gonna go ahead and reopen our budget workshop. Jen, take it away.
Okay, so we're here with the sheriff's office, and we're discussing their PLRs. They have a grand total in PLRs of $2,096,624. And so, whoever wants to talk about the PLRs, or if you're gonna
I just want
rotate.
to clarify first, we've decided at this point, we're just gonna listen, we're not gonna move things over at this point to maintenance and stuff like we do. We'll do that at a second bite around with each other.
Will it be a meeting with all of us, or just a meeting?
I think the way it will probably work out is some of the stuff we're automatically gonna know. We're just gonna go ahead and we'll be on a Zoom meeting, we'll just be slapping it through, and then the stuff that we wanna get deeper in, we'll have you come together with us and we'll have a further discussion. Does that sound about accurate? That's normally how we do it.
Any time frame for that? Sorry to
Probably,
push on
Yeah.
this.
probably before November 18th, when it's due to the public. So,
Okay.
I think, probably by the end of this month though, right?
I was saying,
Yeah.
but if there's something that you're time sensitive on, say it, then tell us today so that we know, because we'll take all that into account.
So next week, next Tuesday, we have the rest of the departments that have PLRs to listen to. And then I would imagine the next week, we could go through the PLRs and
Sounds about right.
and hopefully decide on what is moved over to maintenance and what is not.
So I think the commissioners are trying to kind of understand the bigger picture, especially since you guys
Absolutely.
are funded out of the general fund. There's a number of requests that come against the general fund. If they get an idea of the extent of those requests and our current projections for maintenance level going into 2025. Helps them kind of factor all that in when they're making individual decisions, so. Alrighty.
You want me to open up? Sure, you just go ahead and
So
jump in.
I guess I'll just run down the list, is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, is it in the same order that you see on the screen there, Travis?
Yeah, let's start with, yeah, that works. So that's, that position for 121 K is for a deputy to be a supervisor in the civil department of the sheriff's office.
Oh, I see what you're saying. I thought it was something different. So this is a deputy, because you have the civil division, you want a deputy in this civil division. I was reading as civil service officer.
No.
I was trying to understand, because we had all these conversations about doing different, okay, that makes more
Everybody names
sense.
things a little differently.
And I don't know
So-
if you know the history
Go ahead.
with that. That was the only division that had no supervisory structure. We had a chief and then all the people. And we had nothing in between, and they had no opportunity to train. There was a lot of, now Chief Beierle was having to do with all the personnel issues. We weren't asking any of our chiefs to do all that and her workload. So what we did was, for a couple reasons, we opened it up to our sergeants and corporals for a voluntary temporary position, and we've done it for
A year.
a year.
Well,
No,
we started it this year.
the beginning of the year, and they've been in there, and it's really changed the dynamic down there and given Chief Beierle the opportunity to do her work, and we found that it's so valuable that we want to replace that position that we pulled out of patrol, basically.
So how many do you have underneath that department? Is there a possibility to just reclass and create a position within that department, or is there just nobody there to move up? And you have
They're
to
all
have-
brand
No,
new.
nobody there to fit that bill. We have 2 deputies that are serving civils right now, and that includes all the court orders. We've had legislative mandates that require us to get these court orders, attempts on these court orders within 24 hours. We've been missing the mark on a few of them, so we had to add another deputy down there to start doing that. We've been handed time and again subpoenas after subpoena after subpoena for the same trial. The system is kind of broken, not on our part, but the way the court's working. We can serve somebody 10 times for the same case, just because they come into court and they say, I'm not ready yet, and all of a sudden it gets postponed. Then we have to go through the process of serving subpoenas again. So we had so many subpoenas and so many court orders come in, that we've had to add a second body to that. And in doing that, we also had a whole brand new fleet of support staff down there. And it was complicated for Chief Beierle to train down, do her work, do mid-level, or do first line supervision and mid-level management at the same time.
She had direct responsibility for everybody in that division for evaluations and supervision, and it just.
It's put in a nice buffer between the 2 layers of employment, and it's worked out really well.
It's really helped our relationship with the courts as well, because now these person that's been in that position has been able to go over and work with the clerk when we had issues, work with other people. Plus, one person has already rotated through, and he's taken all that knowledge he got from the 6 months in civil back to the patrol division to improve that knowledge base and their ability to interact with our civil division.
Yeah.
So it's been more beneficial than we even first anticipated.
I say, now, we used to contract some of that stuff out for the serving.
Maybe a long
Yeah, no,
time ago.
Charles Rhodes used to do it, I think.
Right, but that's not us. That's not what comes to us. That was through
Oh, for the
that.
prosecutor's office.
Yes, subpoena, state papers.
And that was before we would get it.
Because I remember we had a conversation though, and we brought in deputy staff to do it because somebody got chased away with a knife and stuff, and so there was a
Yeah, that
whole
was still her.
discussion.
Yeah, and he was a non-fully commissioned, and he wasn't carrying a weapon, he only carried a taser, and he was in a different uniform, and when he retired, we put a full-time deputy who ended up being Jason Sisson to do that serving, and for a while, he was enough, but now with the new mandates, we couldn't do it, so we pulled another deputy off of patrol to put it in there, because that's something that's mandated by law.
So
We
that's
have
the
to-
whole conversation I remember, so that does make
Yes,
sense, thank you.
but those 2 people are different than this supervisor dealing with the actual civil support
No,
and clerk staff.
So if we get that position, that new FTE, that allows us to take the current person that we have in there, put them back into patrol. So it does add a body to our patrol by doing that. Moving on.
I do want to point out really quick that the sheriff's office followed instructions and they did,
Thank you.
Just because it's a novelty, is that what you're saying?
no, but I mean, a lot of people did not number their PLRs in order of priority, and you guys did do that. So this is their number one priority, so that's shown in this column.
It's a very lonely column.
It is a very lonely column.
They're the only ones that
Yeah.
prioritize.
Well, a lot of people, I mean, a lot of these, they felt were maintenance
See,
level,
go from
and so
being the
that's
back
why
class to
they're
the front of
not
the class. Look at you.
prioritized. Yeah, so,
No, that's great to know that, because that does
You
make
get
a
your top
difference also
priorities
when we're
because you follow
making
the
our
rules.
decisions. Appreciate you sharing that with us.
And just another thing, that I know we had a conversation a couple years ago about trying to get us up to 1 deputy per 1,000. I re-looked at all the numbers, and it depends on where you get your numbers from. We currently have 53 fully commissioned. The different websites that I looked at this morning went anywhere from 68,389 to 68,600 for the population in the county. And then the population in the Shelton city limits was 10,800. That leaves 58.6. And calculating those numbers out from those sites, we're at about 0.89, which is better than we were, and we're moving towards that 1,000. And I know you guys have already given us 3, and I wanted to thank you for that over the last 2 years. 2 one year and 1 last year, and this is continuing to move us that direction, so I appreciate it.
So what do you got next?
So next is a new FTE for a PROAC sergeant. This is a new program. It's kind of rebranding what we've done quite a while ago, but we're looking at putting a sergeant in charge. We've got some bodies that we can move in and under that PROAC sergeant slowly as they start coming out of the academy or those positions. The concept behind the PROAC team is that we'll send this team out to problem areas. They'll either do speeding, they'll do investigations into burglaries and thefts, low-tiered felony investigations. They may assist when there's a major crime going on. They may help us in certain areas around the county that need attention that we can't do on regular patrol hours.
That's awesome that you're saying that, because that's one of the things that we've heard over and over again, is that we're reactive instead of proactive. So you're talking about shifting something to...
Well, these people wouldn't be responsible for answering the calls on the screen unless it was an all-skate that needed that extra personnel. So these people wouldn't be responding, because when we send people right now, it's very hard to have discretionary time for them to go out and deal with problem areas in a proactive manner because they're responding to calls for service. This would allow us to pull a couple people out with the supervisor, and then actually, as you guys get complaints of issues in the county, as I get them on a regular basis, and I'm taking them to the chief, and they're like, well, we're answering calls, we don't have anybody to spend some extra time there. This is one way for us to maybe get a handle on some of that.
Do we actually have, do you guys utilize any type of GIS tools to locate, like, where crimes are occurring, so you can say, hey, so it looks like so if you see an increase in burglaries in a certain area, this PROAC team may be able to go out there and...
I need to go to one of those breakfasts. He actually gives the breakdown.
Yeah.
It's ComStats is what it's called, and every time somebody logs a call in, it will pop it up, and you can go Google Earth, and it'll give you the patterns.
I was at a conference last week, and they were talking about artificial intelligence tools, and some of the tools that law enforcement are using now in AI are pretty amazing. So
yeah, I imagine we haven't even tapped into that.
Yeah.
So as that unit comes on into fruition, we want to pull in a new admin lieutenant. He's going to have some admin duties. He's going to be responsible for he's going to be responsible for the PROAC unit. He's going to be responsible for general detectives and our evidence system. That's what that...
it's a reorg, basically.
Well, it's not necessarily a reorg, because we're adding a body and then, I guess, reorging underneath of that body. So there'd be 3 lieutenants under the chief. And you can see the salary on that's pretty low. I'm sure that that's bottom step on that. Okay, where are we at? Overtime. So we've asked for 173 increase on the overtime. That's based on the 3-year average, plus another 24,000 that we are having to kick out every year. This is our first year, is doing CJTC training for our folks that we have to do every 3 years for each deputy. So we're trying to break it down where we're doing a third of our officers every 3 years. And it's mandatory training. It's what do you call it, unfunded mandate by the state, but it's costing us dearly in overtime to do this.
Because we still need them to cover the shifts.
We haven't increased any of the holiday overtime for a long time, and our collective bargaining agreement that we have has gone up, so the value of that dollar and those hours kind of dropped. I guess the value of the dollar, the hour went up, but the number of hours dropped. So we looked at it, and it looks like our 3-year average on that is adding another 70,000 to that. So with those 3 new personnel, new FTEs, we need 3 vehicles to go with it. They'll be white fleet vehicles, so it won't be patrol vehicles. And then you'll, I think,
The other piece
okay,
of
that's
that's
down, yeah, down below, there's another 30,000 for the upfits on those.
Motor pool.
So that's about $10,000 a car to upfit. Trying to go the cheaper route on that. Let's see, I did 36, 2, so if I remember, 2,000 and then 1,000. So we got overtime. Michelle, I need you to help me on this one. I'm lost. I think if I look back on the
evidence.
Okay, so our evidence officer has, or evidence unit has no overtime, but we've been expending a lot of overtime using that. That's just been pulled out of the patrol budget itself. So we're looking for 2,000 to go to that. And what was the 1,000?
There's 2 lines.
Why was there 2 lines?
I don't know. I believe it's holiday overtime.
No, it's
or
just regular
it's
overtime.
some sort of other overtime, but for some reason there's 2 different lines. I
Oh,
don't know.
interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's $3,000 in overtime there. I did 30,000, 3-year average. So holiday, oh, there's a holiday overtime for them. That's 3, huh? No, did we go over that?
Yeah, you missed that.
Why is it not on?
You missed it. It's right there.
Oh, I did. My apologies, folks.
Capital equipment.
So, Building 11, we were looking at, and you guys have authorized some ARPA funding to get the back end of that Building 11 dug up in the yard and stuff. Now we're looking for $50,000 to help put up some sort of storage facility back there. And
Where could those dollars come from, Jennifer?
The 50,000, I mean, probably
building. That's what I was thinking.
REIT 1, if there's funds available.
I believe there are. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
no, it's fine.
I actually am gonna, hopefully later today, go out there and take a look at the work that our facility guys have done. So if you remember when we purchased that building, there was quite a bit of bentonite around it. They had taken care of half of it last year. They got the other half done this year.
Oh
So
my goodness,
the
that's a lot.
entire backside of that building is now usable space.
Wow.
So basically doubled the amount of space. There's some existing concrete footings that are in there. If we could actually construct something utilizing those footings as a base, it may be, we may be able to get it done for 50,000, but yeah, there's definitely more opportunities as of last week when they finished it, right before the rains
I'd
came in.
want to take a look at this sometime.
Should, absolutely, yeah,
I bought that property before we ever bought it or did
Yep.
anything, so.
yeah.
Okay, what else you got?
Transport sergeant for the jail, that's gonna help restart the home monitoring and then managing all the transports to and from Nisqually. 20,000 for, I believe that holiday overtime is in the jail, and that's increased since it's a 3-year average. And that may get adjusted as the CBAs are
When we
dealt
look,
with.
when we're looking at this holiday overtime for the jail, are we taking into account extra overtime because we had low staff, so they've already been working overtime, so they have to pay even more, or?
That's a very good question. I do not know, I haven't analyzed the numbers. I would have to ask Kevin specifically that, Chief Hansen, but I think we can take a look at it.
Just so I understand your question, your question is if you had more
Enough
staff,
staffing, would that reduce?
then the line, overtime line?
Yeah.
Oh, gotcha.
On all of them, actually, but that's, yep.
Okay.
Well, jail especially, yeah.
Well, and then again too, if we have more staff,
The next item. might
can we,
change too.
Miss Squally?
Yes, that's
So-
an unknown, but absolutely.
So
Yeah.
absolutely, and again, a lot of that depends on what you guys have in front of you already and what's going on with that, the contract, the collective bargaining agreement.
The beauty about this, we already have a model that we've just done.
Yep.
So we took the money that was there that wasn't expended and we moved it over. I don't know why we would do any different than what we had already done.
Well, let's assume that you get an agreement signed. And I'm not, when we submitted this, we didn't know where the agreement was at.
Of course not.
So now we know. And I do agree that, as we start to fill the position, we're not gonna need to expend as many dollars going over there. But there's going to be a time frame. It's probably gonna take a better part of a year, because you still have to get people to sign up to PST and then to take the test and to be willing to come here and pass all the rigors of it and get hired, and then get trained. It's going to take some time to get there. Whether we need $1.2 million for Nisqually right up front, I don't think so. But $1.2 million is what it's going to cost us if we status quo.
What I meant, Chief, was that because of the way it worked this year,
The pass-through.
yeah, it definitely was money that's still, you're right, that this money had to be expended, but instead of making a whole new line item, there was a place where the money came from, and we put it, I think that works for this year, because if things do go well, like we're expecting, and there's a huge change and you get a bunch of laterals, money in, money out, you're expending it on people, which means we keep them home, or we don't, and we spend it there, and we don't have the expenditures under staff. So I think it worked this year, the way you pulled it together and the way you guys did, so.
I would, we didn't have a specific line item.
I know.
And I would like to create one once 2025 starts that has an outsourcing, so we know how much we're expending out into where.
Instead of professional services.
Yeah, I think that's where it's tucked out, but I think we need to identify it specifically because it is a
I'd like
unique.
to.
And we should, my opinion would be to always keep a contract open with Nisqually.
Yes.
And maybe house 5 people there, just in case we have the event that requires us to push people over there, or we have 4 people leave, or we have whatever. But to keep a good open contract and keep a working relationship with them. Yeah,
That makes sense.
probably back and forth on, wage and benefits, shifting it from here to there, but. Questions?
No,
This is too easy.
well, this is the first round.
Question.
We all know all the blows are let out in the second and third round.
So on the second round and the third round, Michelle's gonna do all the talking.
Okay.
No, she's not.
Again, it's fairly simple, and especially when we're doing it, we'll just have some ways, we'll have some internal conversations, and then we'll give you an opportunity to weigh in afterwards too.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that I didn't see in here that I thought I might, was additional correctional positions.
Yes.
So,
So maybe,
No, please.
you go, it's yours.
No.
It's your,
You
okay.
talk to Kevin.
So my understanding was that you were gonna give us one extra correctional officer. That was my understanding that we had heard, and that's where we assigned that transport sergeant for the jail.
The discussions that I've been a part of, at least, was the discussion of taking a couple of your civil service officers and returning them back to
Our
a position.
CSOs. Our
Yeah.
CSOs.
community service.
Community service, and returning them back to corrections officers.
Because we
positions
haven't been getting
and pay.
applications.
And because I believe, even from the beginning, having access and openings is actually a better thing, because you will hire to your capacity and keep going out to hire. I would like to see extra positions there than anything else.
And we've had that conversation with Kevin, as he hasn't gotten the applications. We originally went from a deputy's position to a CSO to try to attract some people that wouldn't qualify for a deputy position in the jail, and it hasn't panned out, so it would be good to take one or two of those positions. I would want to talk with Kevin.
I was gonna say, I think it has to come from, as a request from you guys. That's
Yes,
what we've
correct.
talked about, and that's what
Okay.
I'd like to see, but it still has to come from you, because there's also gonna be a dollar figure that goes with it, especially
Absolutely.
if we do a new contract, there's gonna be a dollar figure that goes with those position changes. But I think it'd be very wise, and I know I'd be very, very, very supportive of this would.
To switch all of them over, or just one of them to start with?
You have 5,
That are
switch
filled.
3, leave 2.
So one of the things that we were talking about that I think was super positive in the past is that you, within the CDA, you identified the ability for CSO officers to be able to man the control room
Yes.
within the jail. And that made a ton of sense to us, because when you're in the control room, you really can't come out of the control room. You
Yeah.
have to stay in there no matter what. And so if in addition to that, they were also managing a big population of individuals
Yes.
that were on
Home monitor.
home monitoring.
Work release.
And so that has really dried up. So kind of looking into the future, not sure how the courts are gonna utilize home monitoring in the future and whether it's gonna be utilized. I feel like as we look at the entire law and justice system, that the crimes that they're going to be prosecuting and defending are gonna be the higher level crimes that may be.
Especially depending on the decision by the Supreme Court
Correct.
this month.
Correct, so big picture stuff, right? I mean, it all impacts each other. So if that's the case, and we have more of our individuals that we're housing within our jail are individuals that are not eligible for any type of in-home monitoring, then to me, and to the commissioners, I believe, through our discussions, it kind of made sense to say, let's take some of these CSO officer positions that are not filled right now, turn them into an additional correctional officer position, and if we can hire up, then we actually have a little bit of cushion to say, hey, as we see vacancies, as people retire, I think you actually have some correctional officers that are getting close to retirement. As those individuals fall off, then actually having that time to still cover with that extra staff.
And also
the base.
Utilizing them during training and everything else, as long as you have it. When we had our highest capacities, when I first came in, we had 31 corrections officers. And I would like to see us there, on a regular basis. But again, it can go up, you can't go down. A CSO is not gonna be coming out of that booth to help you if you're in trouble, really. I wanna be able to have them, the modalities, be able to do everything they can. And it is expensive, but it's not expensive. It's the capability of doing many more jobs and safety for everybody that's there.
And I have had that conversation with Kevin, and he was in favor of moving them back to full deputy positions.
We'll have to get the number of.
Yeah, because
number
he
of
has
CSOs.
3, the patrol side has 2.
I think we have 3 with one open over there.
Oh, so there's 4?
Sure, I texted Kevin to ask how many he was
On the budget, I know we had 5 total
Yes.
on the budget.
I just counted 5.
So
We've got the one for the north end, and then there's 3 or 4 in the jail?
yeah, there's 3 that are filled, I believe, and then I think there's 1 open in the jail.
So
And then there's one up north.
one of the things I know that we've got 1 or 2 of those filled positions doesn't want to move up, so we have those positions.
And I don't want to force anybody, that's not what I want. But I would like to keep it open for ourselves and maybe put it in there to where it could be a hybrid, that it can be changed right over if somebody was to leave.
So what do we need to do? Do we need to get with Jennifer on that to add
Oh, yeah.
that in?
Everything goes through Jen.
Oh, I get that, but
And
when would
Mary,
you like us to do that?
Well, she'll
then?
also get you the
Is
numbers.
there
We
a
can
Mary,
get you the
is there a Mary
information
component to
today.
that too?
So that-
Is there a Mary
Is it HR?
component to that?
Well, it's actually, it may be a little bit easier because we're not talking about creating a brand new position, right? It's just an additional correctional deputy position. So I think that
conversion, yeah.
Mary's involvement heavy involvement is when a department or an office wants to restructure and create a brand new position. And so trying to determine the requirements associated with that. I think it's a little more heavy lift to do that, but we did have some time periods associated with that with folks that they needed to get information to Mary.
I thought maybe it was, we just did a conversion,
Oh,
right?
there's
For
Mary.
another office that she was involved in.
She must have heard me, now she's coming after me.
I've been here because I saw positions on these PLR lists. I think that we definitely need to just talk with the union, let them know kind of what we're thinking, and keep that feedback loop open. But conversions are usually, like you said, relatively easier because there's no loss of an FTE to the group, which is their main concern.
You were right.
And hey, Commissioner Shooty was
What's
saying
it?
something. You guys, what were you saying? I didn't catch, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, I was just saying, we just did a conversion that HR was involved in, so that's why I was.
Oh, yeah, we did. Yep.
Yeah.
It looks
The
like there's
conversion
five.
from the CSO to the corrections, the only reason I felt like that might be similar is because just a couple of years ago, we went from correction officer to
Yep.
CSO, and then we really modified the duties within that CBA about what a CSO could do. It feels like it's actually going maybe the easier path of taking a CSO position and turning it into a corrections deputy position.
Yeah, when we shifted those
but-
over, we had to recreate a lot of stuff to allow them to do things. It was definitely not as easy of a path back then.
But we thought it may attract people that we weren't getting in the corrections deputy positions.
Let's hope the new contract changes on that.
Yes, yes.
I'll work with
Already
Kevin to
heard
figure out
news.
the numbers, and then Jen and Mary.
And it looks like there's five
Five total
CSOs in
CSOs,
the
right.
budget.
There's 2 in the patrol and 3 in the jail. Or maybe we've got a
We'll figure.
We'll figure it out.
We'll figure out the
Yep.
specifics down there.
But you know what we're looking for.
Yes, got
And
it.
again, I want to make clear, that's just a request, it's something I'd like to see, whether you guys do it or not, it's up to you. It's your
Yeah, if it doesn't work for the
Yeah,
model,
it's
then
your-
yeah,
it's your
but-
barbecue, I just, you know, this is my whole life, I understand having redundancy, it's a beautiful thing when you're having a hard time getting people in.
And we'll wait and see how this new contract affects that, so we're excited about the potential.
Yeah, please lateral, steal.
So why, can I ask, why do you have 2 CSOs that are not in the jail?
We had 2 in patrol, we had 1 in, and it goes all the way back to when Danielle was a CSO, and she would answer phone calls and do phone response or walk-ins when deputies would come in, or people would come in, so that the deputies that were answering calls out on their patrol cars didn't have to come back to the office, and it really took a load off and made the deputies on the streets more efficient. Anything to add to that?
We just got one in patrol.
So that's why we have 4, okay. I thought we had gotten a second in patrol.
The north end CSO.
Yes.
That's the one that you gave us a couple of years ago to keep the north end office open. We haven't been able to fill that for better part of this year, or, this year and part of last year. And we are about ready to hire a gal here hopefully by next week or week after next.
Which would be very helpful in that north.
So she'll be permanently assigned to the north end once we get her trained up.
Find out if you can where we are for pay scale for other types of support staff compared to a CSO. Because it might be a different type of position of support staff for doing this job and hiring a deputy for other things. I'm just looking at different options in my head. I'd like to see what those numbers look like.
One of the freedoms about having a CSO is they're in uniform, they have training, they're not carrying a gun, but they can actually contact citizens that come to like the North Precinct and want to report a stolen vehicle or something else. They can actually go out and contact them, not behind a protected counter.
Well, sometimes the uniform makes a big difference.
Yes, it does.
All right, what else we got, guys? We're 1 minute over, getting Kevin out of here.
I have 11 o'clock on the dot. I think that's just really
Okay.
great job by Jen.
Ready, set, go!
Okay, well, I will entertain a motion.
Move we adjourn?
I'll second.
Hearing no objection, we're adjourned. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Rock,
Thank you,
paper,
guys.
scissors.
And thank you for the work on that contract, we are grateful.